Looks like you're good, Joe.
Yep, we're all set. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to get it on here too, just in case I crash.
Yeah,
wanna
I got 8, right? 1, 2.
Yep, we're up. Okay, good.
6, 7.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Commission, the City of Danbury. This is a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom. Today is May 11th, 2021 at 7:30. Let us begin with the roll call at 7:34. Let me hit my mute on the YouTube. Commissioner Almeida.
Here.
Commissioner Fay.
Present.
Commissioner Hawley.
Here.
Commissioner Hylinski.
Present.
Commissioner Jowdy. I don't see or hear. I'll mark him absent. Commissioner Kelly. I don't see or hear. I'll mark him absent. Commissioner Mazzy.
Here.
Commissioner Malillo.
Here.
Commissioner Eriquez.
Here.
Commissioner Marchand.
Here.
Commissioner Nejame is absent. Mr. Marchand, would you please sit in for Mr. Jowdy for the entire evening?
Yes, sounds good.
Thank you. Mr. Eriquez, would you please sit in for Mr. Kelly for the entire evening?
Yes.
Thank you. The next regular meeting is scheduled for May 25th, 2021. Commissioner Malillo,
Yes, Commissioner Haddad.
you ready with the pledge?
I am as soon as Joanne gives me permission to share the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. I was counting. I only come up with 8, but I've got 9 written down.
Candace is there and Jay Eriquez.
Yep, got them. Okay. Okay, you're all set, Rob.
Yep, okay. So do we want to stand?
That's awesome. Thank you, Rob.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you. Everyone should have received the minutes, the April 27th, 2021 minutes. Are there any comments? I'd like to get a motion to approve those, accept those minutes. Do I see any to accept the minutes? Mr. Almeida, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mazzy.
Yep.
Are there any, is there any discussion on the minutes? Notations, deletions, modifications? Not hearing any. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of April 21st, 2021, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? I did not hear any opposition.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, it's April 27th,
Oh, what did I say?
21st.
Oh, April 27th, 2021. Thank you.
That 7 looked like a 1 to you, probably like it has to me numerous times.
I don't want to get into this conversation, but my eyes have been real bad the last 2 weeks. I'm hoping it's just temporary allergies. Let me go over, if I can, first of all, I'm going to read the legal notice. It's for the entire evening. It's for the post of this meeting. The legal notice, the applications to be heard by the Zoning Commission of Public Hearings in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom on May 11, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. The agenda to be posted will include instructions to access the Zoom meeting and the application materials. As you know, our agenda also includes the YouTube site to log on to. Public hearings pursuant to Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7L, extended by Executive Order 11. Notice is hereby given that the following petitions will be heard. Number 1, petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend amend sections 4H2B2A and 4H2B3B of the zoning regulations. Number 2, petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend the master plan for the summit. In parentheses, this was approved on June 23rd, 2020. And number 3, petition of Quirk Works Brewing and Blendery Inc., Triangle Industries LLC, property owner, 78 Triangle Street, J14280 for special permit for brewery in the IL40 zone. This is posted on the city's website and sent to the town clerk on April 27th, 2021. Let me just go over the procedure and some of the instructions for this. This is, as I mentioned, it's a Zoom meeting. It's a virtual meeting. It'll be run the same way as we run them when we're in the council chambers, except it will run a little bit slower. I look for hands. We all look for hands and also for voices. To note, I see that there are some here other than the commission members. We have a chat function. We ask that it not be used because it becomes the record and it's could be distracting to some of the commission members. The way the public hearing runs is we have the petitioner present. Those in favor will then speak. Those opposed, there'll be a rebuttal, and then we will look for a motion to either close or continue the public hearing. We don't have any other continuations of public hearings. We have a section on other matters. That's where the public can speak or any commission members can speak on items that are not on the agenda. All right. The first public hearing this evening is a petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend sections 4H2B2A and 4H2B3B of the zoning regulations, amend PND zone. I will read the Planning Commission recommendation. It's dated May 7th, 2021. To Theodore J. Haddad Jr., Chairman, Danbury Zoning Commission, from Arnold E. Finaldi Jr., Chairman of the Danbury Planning Commission, regarding 8.3A referral petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend sections 4H2B2A and 4H2B3B of the zoning regulations, amend the PND zone. At the web-based Zoom meeting held on April 21st, 2021, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above referenced petition a positive recommendation for the following reasons. Number 1, the proposed amendments are consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD. Number 2, they meet the purpose and intent of the PND zone. Number 3, they will help address redevelopment of an existing building as well as addressing growing and changing needs of the Danbury Public Schools. And number 4, they will not negatively impact the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. The motion to give this a positive recommendation was made by Mr. Uris, seconded by Mr. Chioccio, and passed unanimously by a roll call vote with ayes from Mr. Chioccio, Mrs. Hofstadter, Mr. Sylvain, Mr. Uris, and Chairman Finaldi. Additionally, we sent a letter to the Westcog. They reported back by sending an email dated April 7th, 2021 in response to Ms. Reed's April 6th request to Joanne Reed, Planning Assistant, from Kristen Floberg, Planner, Reed, Connecticut Statutory Referral to Westcog from Danbury Attached Zoning Amendment, which was this amendment. Dated April 7th, 2021. Thank you for submitting the attached referral to Westcog. The opinion of the Westcog staff is that the proposal is of local interest with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to the adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment.
Mr. Chairman, can I just interject for a second? Because we are getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that. So I guess if you're not speaking, maybe we should just ask everybody to mute yourselves.
Thank you. Yes, if everyone can just hit mute, or Joanne, I don't know if you could do that on a master basis. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Looks like everyone is muted. And now, Ms. Calitro, please unmute if we can go to the staff report.
Sure, you want me to read it into the record? Mr.
Sure.
Chairman? Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay. To the City of Danbury Planning Commission and City of Danbury Zoning Commission from Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, dated April 15th, 2021, regarding the petition to amend various sections of Section 4H of the zoning regulations, the P&D zone, SC Ridge Owner LLC. We've received a petition to amend sections 4H 2B2A, 4H 2B2A4, 4H 2B3B2, and add section 4H 2B3B5 to the P&D regulations. The amendments are noted to provide flexibility in the adaptive reuse or retrofitting of large buildings in the P&D zone and to allow a secondary school as a community facility as part of a mixed use development in the P&D zoning district. The petitioner included a letter from Attorney Beecher dated March 30th, 2021, wherein it outlined and provided reasons for its request. Comments on the proposed amendments. Number 1, amend section 4H2B2A to increase the maximum allowable non-residential square footage from 75 to 85% of the existing building gross floor area in the case of a retrofit of an existing building alternative. The increase in maximum allowable non-residential square footage under the retrofit alternative is proposed to compensate for interior space within the building that currently counts towards the non-residential maximum but is not leasable, for example, or e.g., stairwells, elevator shafts, and hallways. This request does not appear unreasonable. Additionally, utilizing 85% of the existing building gross floor area is also consistent with the percentage used to calculate the required number of parking spaces per section 8C4. Number 2, amend section 4H2B2A4 to allow for the reduction in the required total number of dwelling units from 250 to 175 units in a P&D under the retrofit alternative and within existing building if a portion of the building is to be occupied by a public school owned and operated by the City of Danbury. The reduction in the required minimum number of dwelling units under this specific scenario compensates for the commensurate loss of space within a retrofit structure for the required mix of uses if a city school is constructed in the building. A minimum number of units remains to be required, which will ensure that there continues to be a mix of uses in the P&D, including residential. There is a public benefit to use of a portion of the retrofit space for a school owned and operated by the City of Danbury, not similarly enjoyed if the school space is privately developed. As such, the city school alternative in a retrofit structure, the required number of dwelling units would be decreased from 250 to 175. If a school other than a City of Danbury school is proposed in the retrofit P&D, the required number of residential units would remain at 250. Number 3, amend section 4H2B3B2 to add secondary schools to list of permitted community facility uses in a P&D. The list of permitted uses in the above referenced section currently permits kindergarten and elementary schools. The amendment proposes to add secondary schools, a request driven by the collaborative initiative to establish a city-owned school for grades 6 through 12 in 3 of the 6 pods that were originally slated for dwelling units to address the public school space needs. While it is true that the amendment would allow a secondary school as part of a retrofit adaptive reuse P&D, it would also allow a secondary school as part of any P&D. Neither the language in this existing section of the zoning regulations or the proposed amendment to the specific section makes a distinction relative to ownership/operation of the educational facility or facilities listed as permitted uses. Such uses, if owned and operated by the City of Danbury, would, however, enjoy relaxation of certain requirements that facilities by others would not. For example, reduction in the minimum number of dwelling units as noted above, or exclusion of the floor space from the calculation of maximum non-residential space as noted below, because these uses provide a public benefit and help address a public need. Number 4, add section 4H2B3B5 to allow for the exclusion of the floor area of kindergarten, elementary, or secondary schools owned and operated by the City of Danbury from the calculation of the total maximum non-residential square footage allowed in a P&D zone. The exclusion of the floor area of a kindergarten, elementary, or secondary school from the maximum non-residential square footage would only be permitted if the school is to be owned and operated by the city of Danbury. If any of these educational uses were proposed to be otherwise owned and operated, the floor areas of those uses would count in the calculation of the total non-residential square footage allowed in the PND. The exclusion is provided only for public schools because private schools would not garner the same level of public benefit. For example, a private kindergarten or private school operated for profit is a commercial use as compared to the city of Danbury public school owned and operated by the city to provide public educational opportunities for Danbury residents. Compliance with the Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD. While these are general zoning amendments, it is clear based on the collaborative effort regarding the Danbury Career Academy that the amendments will ultimately help address the redevelopment / retrofitting of its building on the west side. In this regard, the amendments would be considered consistent with the latter language in vision statement number 3 of the POCD, which states that the west side would, among other things, be the focus of creatively designed neighborhoods. The establishment of the Danbury Career Academy within an existing mixed-use building is indeed creative. The land development plan section on page 14 provides that in part, the landowners should be encouraged to improve design of renovated structures. Utilizing a portion of a building as a public school can result in improved design within and on the exterior of the renovated structure. The public facilities and utilities plan section, page 41, indicates as to Danbury Public Schools that necessary school facilities to be provided to meet the growing and changing needs of the Danbury Public Schools. The proposed amendments do just that. Since this petition is a zoning amendment applicable to any property which may be designated as a P&D, there is no required finding of consistency with the land development plan map. Conclusion. The request to increase the percentage of non-residential square footage within a retrofit building in a P&D from 75% to 85% seems appropriate considering that there is interior space that must be provided to meet the tenant needs that is not rentable space. It also aligns with the percentage, lines of percentage with existing parking calculations, thus maintaining consistency in calculations. Adding a secondary school to the list of existing schools also seems appropriate in 2021, as the city must address space needs for its increasing student population. Finally, by reducing the required minimum number of dwelling units when a city school is proposed and excluding city schools from the non-residential square footage calculation, P&D developers are incentivized and not penalized if they provide these facilities to help address community needs. In this case, the amendments will help address public school needs that were not prevalent 20 years ago when the P&D regulations were promulgated. To amend the zoning regulations, the commissions must find that the amendments are 1, consistent with the POCD, 2, meet the purpose and intent of the P&D zone, and 3, will not negatively impact the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. Based on the above, staff supports the proposed amendments.
Thank you very much.
I won't read as fast as Commissioner Melillo, but I try.
I'll call on him if you want.
I actually had it up thinking you were.
We need the time clock. Anyway.
Thank you very much. All those wishing to speak in favor of this petition.
Mr. Chairman.
I see Attorney Beecher. Yes, sir, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, my name's Tom Beecher of the Collins Hannafin Law Firm, and I represent the owner and the applicant in this application, SC Ridge Owner LLC. With me tonight are Michael Basile and Tony Rizzo Jr. It's been less than a year since this commission approved our master plan for the summit. I think that after your vote on that particular application, all of you who were here then wished us good luck. Let me just say that what has occurred on this project since then has been a pleasant surprise for all of us, including the city. Space is getting leased up. As you may have seen, New Vance Health, which includes Danbury Hospital, has committed to leasing over 200,000 square feet of space in this building. And now the city of Danbury wants to be part of this as well. The city wants to build a school in 3 of the 6 residential pods in this building. The rebirth of this building is well on its way. The former Matrix building was a ghost town. Fortunately for all, that ghost town is now becoming a distant memory. We have two applications before you this evening. One is to amend the PND regulations, and the other is to amend our current approved master plan. The application to amend the PND regulations seeks to allow additional flexibility in leasing non-residential space in an adaptive reuse project, and seeks to also allow a secondary school as an additional allowed use in the PND zone, and to make certain allowances for the developer when a school is a public school owned by the city of Danbury and is positioned to be located in the retrofit building. You've just heard Sharon's report, and obviously we are on the same page, and we are in complete agreement with her presentation of the amendments and her comments. As she noted, some of these proposals are collaborative, a collaborative effort with the city to allow the city-owned secondary school, and specifically to move forward with the proposed Danbury Career Academy. There are 4 proposed changes to the regulations. 3 of those are interrelated as they apply to putting a secondary school owned by the city into an adaptive reuse building, and for which there is a city public benefit. The first proposed change is to permit up to 85% of the allowed floor area in an adaptive reuse project to be used for non-residential uses. This request is because in getting into the details and looking at the actual structure of this 1.2 million square foot building, we looked harder at the fact that well over 100,000 square feet of space was dead space in terms of leasability. It counted towards our maximum non-residential space cap, but it was not leasable productive space. This would be the same for any large adaptive reuse building project, as it's a regulation change. This space is dedicated to hallways, elevator shafts, stairwells, and utilities. So we looked at the fact that your regulations recognize the 85% figure as appropriate in this situation, because that is a figure used in section 8C4, as the planning director pointed out, of the regulations for computing the required parking for the net leasable commercial space. This proposed change would only apply to a retrofit project, and this is important, this change does not change the fact that a developer would still be required to build the minimum 250 residential units in the building. In other words, if you adopt this proposal, the desired mix of uses in the retrofit PND will not be impacted. And if you adopt this change, this commission also still has the opportunity to review a site-specific proposed master plan to be sure it works for the particular retrofit building and site. The second requested change to the regulations is to add secondary schools as a permitted community use in the PND zone. When the PND zone was first created 20 years ago, it really wasn't contemplated that the city of Danbury might need additional secondary schools, or that such a school could or should be allowed as part of a planned neighborhood development. Therefore, the original regulation only allowed for elementary schools and nursery schools. This additional use, allowing a secondary school in the PND, makes sense. Why not? And remember, again, this commission has the final say on whether a particular proposed middle or high school is appropriate for a particular PND project when you review a proposed zone change and master plan for a particular site. So if you do approve these regulation amendments, and if the city chooses to move forward with the Danbury Career Academy, then we would come back to you in collaboration with the city to amend the master plan to include the Danbury Career Academy in this project. As an aside, and this is site specific, but I can't imagine a better site for a career academy than in the same building with 700,000 square feet of business uses, yet they would be separately tucked into 3 separate pods of the building. The next 2 proposed changes to the regulations are specifically designed to apply only when the PND retrofit project includes a secondary school that is a public school owned and operated by the city of Danbury, and the school is part of an adaptive reuse project. These 2 additional proposed regulation tweaks are trade-offs with the building owner who agrees to include the school because the secondary school owned and operated by the city in an adaptive reuse building is a public benefit, as the planning director pointed out. And it saves money for the city because the city does not need to build a new school from the ground up. Those proposed additional changes are, first, to exclude the gross square footage of the school from counting towards the maximum non-residential floor area. The incentive for the developer or the trade-off is that the existence of a school will not reduce the maximum square footage that can be leased for business or other allowed non-residential uses. It wouldn't be productive or fair, for instance, if the proposed school goes into an area of the building earmarked for residences, yet that space was deducted from our maximum usable non-residential space. The Career Academy will utilize over 220,000 square feet of this building. To have that 220,000 square feet deducted from our maximum leasable non-residential space would be a major disincentive for any developer. The second related proposed regulation change is that the PND developer can reduce the minimum number of required residential units from 250 down to 175 if, and only if, a city-owned secondary school is located in the retrofit building. It's just a bit of a simple trade-off. A city-owned public school takes the place of more residential units. These proposed sections would not apply to a private school that wanted to lease space in the retrofit building. For instance, the Goddard School is already a tenant at the Summit. And as you saw in our approved master plan, that space is deemed non-residential space. That's fine with us and that won't change. The private school will be deemed non-residential space and will count towards that non-residential space. As you know, zoning regulations often make distinctions where there is a public benefit involved. The best example in the zoning regulations, and specifically in the city of Danbury zoning regulations, is where you have an incentive that gives developers a density bonus in the number of homes that can be built if a certain percentage of those homes qualify as affordable housing. That's a public benefit. Therefore, the developer of that particular housing gets a benefit that other developers might not get. So there's nothing wrong with recognizing a public benefit distinction in these proposed regulation changes. These proposed regulation changes are consistent with the requirements in section 10I3. These changes are fairly minor in the general scheme of things. They are consistent with other uses in the PND zone and other zoning regulations. They are consistent with the adaptive reuse retrofit amendments that you approved. A school use has already been approved to be allowed in the PND zone when it was originally created. Adding a secondary school is just one more step above that. And again, it would be generally compatible with other PND uses subject to your review of a master plan. These changes are also of assistance to the current and future needs of the city, and they'll assist in the goal of the creative adaptive reuse of large buildings, and in our case, creative appropriate development of Danbury's west side. These proposed changes are also consistent with the plan of conservation and development for all the reasons that Sharon just articulated very well in her report, and I'm not going to reiterate them. Suffice it to say that we agree with them. Lastly, as you know, and as you read, the Planning Commission unanimously voted in favor of these regulation changes and gave you a positive recommendation. So for all these reasons, we would ask you to adopt these proposed changes to the PND regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Melillo.
Yes, Attorney Beecher, I have two questions for you. One, I wasn't sure if I was going to ask you or if I was going to ask Ms. Calitro, but because you alluded to it in your presentation just now, I think I'm going to go ahead and ask you. But that's going to be the second question. The first one, actually, when I was reading through the material and reading through Sharon's staff report, the first thing that popped into my head, and I had a question and a concern about it, just what dealt with those last two points that you just mentioned, what you just talked about, tying those advantages to the requirement to to build a city school there, and I had to wonder, because my initial thought was that almost sounded like contract zoning, but then I thought maybe it's not, because it's a regulation and not a zone change amendment, or not a zone change petition. So I was just wondering if you could address that for me.
Well, it wouldn't be contract zoning, because this all goes to the public benefit that both Sharon and I have talked about. In other words, if there's a public benefit by allowing a city-owned, and it has to be a city-owned and operated public school, then in order to incentivize the developer to make that a part of the development, you then say, okay, Mr. Developer, you do not have to go all the way to 250 as your minimum residential units. You only have to put in a minimum of 175, so 75 less units. And the other thing is, if a school is going to come in and, for instance, like this one, take up 220,000 square feet of space in the building, then you also don't want to disincentivize the developer by saying, well, that's great, thanks for having us, but that goes against your non-residential cap, so that's all that office space you're not able to rent. So that's why they go hand in hand. The three all really go hand in hand.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I just wanted to get you to weigh in on that, just to confirm my thinking that it was okay, but I wanted to mention it. The second one, and this question could get me in a lot of hot water, especially if I take off my zoning commission hat and I put on my teacher hat, because I may anger some teachers with this question, but I'm curious about it. And I just have to wonder, just thinking down the road, could you explain a little bit further how a City of Danbury public school would be a public benefit and meet a public need, but not a non-City of Danbury school would not meet that public benefit, or be a public benefit and meet that public need? I'm just curious how, I'm thinking down the road, what would prevent another school from trying to make the argument that they also are a public benefit and meet a public need?
Well, the City of Danbury public schools are open to everyone. And so, for instance, the high school, there would be certain students that would qualify, I believe, although I don't know what they actually have to do to go to the career academy, but it's a public school owned and operated by the city, as opposed to a private school that picks and chooses who comes and so forth.
And would that include like a charter school? Would not meet that criteria?
I don't want to get into that tonight. I don't know enough about charter schools and how separated they are, other than what I've read. So I really don't want to comment.
Okay. That's why I said it was bordering on that danger zone for me as a teacher.
Well, in working with Sharon on the language, we tried to be very clear on what this was. It had to be owned and operated by the City of Danbury as a public school.
Thank you, Mr. Beecher.
You all set, Mr. Malillo?
Yes, Commissioner Haddad.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Commission members, any other questions at this time? Any other questions of Attorney Beecher at this time? I don't see any hands or hear any voices. So I will ask if there's anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition. Or Attorney Beecher, is there anyone you're going to assign to speak right now?
No, unless Michael and Tony have an urgent need to speak. I don't think so.
Okay, I'll ask again. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Rotello. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Paul Rotello for the record, 13 Linden Place, Danbury. As a resident of the 6th Ward where this project is, and as a member of the City Council for the 6th Ward where this project is, I have two interests, a personal one and a civic one. And I just want to state for the record that I support the petition, and that I think it would be good on a personal level for the West Side, for the 6th Ward, and as a civic and political issue, it would be good for the city of Danbury. So I support the project, and I hope it goes forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? I don't see any. I don't hear any. Attorney Beecher, any other closing comments, rebuttals, anything you maybe forgot to say?
No, not at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. I would hope you'd close the public hearing.
Thank you. Commission members, we've heard in favor, we've heard no opposition. Everyone had an opportunity to speak. So I would like to see if there's anyone here willing to make a motion to close this public hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Malillo.
before I make a motion to close this public hearing, I just wanted to make sure that staff didn't have any additional comments that they wanted to present.
Ms. Calitro.
I do not. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Thank you, Mr. Malillo.
Okay, with that, then I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Perfect. Thank you very much. There's a motion made by Mr. Malillo to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I see Mr. Almeida's hand raised, so he will be the second on this. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? For the record, I did not hear any opposition to closing the public hearing, nor did I see any hands. So unanimously, this public hearing is closed. Thank you very much. We now have a second petition this evening under public hearings. It is a petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend the master plan for the summit, which was approved on June 30th, 2020.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Malillo.
just out of curiosity, we will need to take action on petition number 1 before we can take action on petition number 2. Is that correct?
I don't think so, but
No.
Ms. Calitro? Ms. Calitro?
Sorry. Just my hands aren't working that fast. No, this is a regulation change.
So, but petition number 1 is a regulation change, which paves the way for the master plan change, does it not?
No.
No. Not this master plan change. No.
But so this isn't a master. I remember reading through it, and maybe I misread what I was thinking. So this master plan change does not have anything to do with the school.
That's correct.
Okay. Because I read them back to back, I had one thing in my mind, and that's what I think why I confused it.
Yeah, it is a little confusing, but no, it has nothing to do with that. If they want to come back to amend the master plan based on a potential approval of these petition amendments in number 1, they would have to do that, and so that would come in time. But these are mutually exclusive, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted that clarity.
Mr. Malillo, thank you, Ms. Calitro. Okay, let me read into the record the Planning Commission recommendation dated May 7th, 2021. Theodore J. Haddad, Jr., Chairman, Danbury Zoning Commission, from Arnold E. Finaldi, here, Chairman, Danbury Planning Commission, 8-3 regarding 8-3A referral petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend the master plan for the summit approved June 23rd, 2020. At the web-based Zoom meeting held on April 21st, 2021, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above referenced petition a positive recommendation for the following reasons. Number 1, the approved 2020 master plan was deemed in compliance with the Plan of Conservation Development, POCD, and these amendments will not change that. Number 2, the proposed amendments are consistent with the purpose for which the site was rezoned to PND And number 3, they will provide flexibility while maintaining the mixed-use development. The motion to give this a positive recommendation was made by Mr. Uri, seconded by Mr. Salvain, and passed unanimously by roll call vote with ayes from Mr. Chioccio, Mrs. Hofstadter, Mr. Salvain, Mr. Urice, and Chairman Finaldi. Additionally, let me read in Westcog's report. Ms. Reed's request of them on April 6th, their response on April 7th was, thank you for submitting the attached referral to Westcog. The opinion of the Westcog staff is that the proposal is of local interest with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to the adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. Ms. Calitro, would you please read the staff report?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the City of Danbury Planning Commission, City of Danbury Zoning Commission, from Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, dated April 15th, 2021, regarding petition to amend the master plan for the Summit SC Ridge Owner LLC. We received a petition to amend the 2020 master plan for the Summit. The amendments include a request to allow up to the full 75% of the non-residential square footage on site under the retrofit alternative pursuant to section 4H2B2A of the zoning regulations, and to set minimum and maximum square footage for the non-residential uses to provide flexibility in leasing space within the existing building. The Summit site is identified as tax assessor lot C16022 and is 99.53 acres in size. The petitioner included a letter from Attorney Beecher dated March 3rd, 2021, wherein it provided reasons for its request. Comments on the proposed amendments. Number 1, request to increase the non-residential square footage to the maximum allowed under the P&D regulations. The above referenced section of the P&D regulations allows a maximum non-residential square footage to 75% of the existing building to be retrofit. In the case of the Summit Master Plan and existing structure, this calculates to 950,390 square feet. While this maximum percentage was discussed at the time of the petitioner's request for a P&D designation, the uses within the master plan that was submitted and approved totaled 942,513 square feet. The current request to increase the non-residential square footage to the maximum allowed by the zoning regs amounts to a total of 7,877 square feet. Number 2, request to set minimum and maximum non-residential use category limits to allow flexibility within the existing building. Non-residential permitted use categories in the zoning regulations are comprised of neighborhood, retail, and service uses, community facilities, and non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the residential development. The proposed zoning regulations, provide in section 4H2B3B 1 through 3, a list of uses in each category. There is also a general statement in each use category that allows for additional non-residential uses of a similar kind and character to be permitted or approved by the Zoning Commission upon review and approval of the master plan. This amendment appears intended to allow for flexibility under the approved master plan to account for increases or decreases in tenant spaces within the retrofit building. The ranges within each category are identified in Attorney Beecher's letter of March 3rd, 2021. There are no square footage limitations in the zoning regulations in the categories, just an underlying intent within the zone that the P&D provide for a mix of uses. I'll address that in 1 second. This presumes, as expected, that all non-residential uses are not of one category. Considering that tenant space needs change over time, and to address the permitting process involved with tenant space improvements or a change of use, albeit to non-residential use, without having to amend the master plan, this request does not appear unreasonable. Minimum and maximum limits ensure that the mix of non-residential uses will be maintained. Staff would monitor square footages within each category and throughout the building as tenant spaces change. This process is consistent with what is undertaken for other multi-tenanted buildings within the city. Should the Zoning Commission approve the increase in non-residential square footage to the maximum of 950,390 square feet as requested, based on the petitioner's letter and the square footage allocations described therein, below would be the resultant square footage by phase. Phase 1 within the building and phase 2 outside the building. Total existing building size, 1,267,186 square feet. Phase 1 existing building, total residential square footage, 533,446 square feet. 75% maximum non-residential square footage would be 950,390 square feet, comprised of phase 1, which is existing building, total non-residential square footage, the sum of 590,608 square feet plus 143,132 square feet of non-residential space, see Attorney Beecher's letter, amounts to 733,740 square feet. And then phase 2, total non-residential square footage of 216,650 square feet. Just before I read the next section, I just want to make a comment, as I indicated, that the community facility, I was actually wrong and I overlooked something. The community facilities section of the regulations as a whole shall not, the existing regulation said that it shall not exceed 10% of the gross acreage. So that would amount, in terms of community facilities, of 433,000 square feet, which we're nowhere near. Compliance with the Plan of Conservation and Development, the POCD. The 2020 master plan was deemed in compliance with the characteristics of the PND. These amendments have no impact on compliance, but rather clarifies the percentage of non-residential square footage to the maximum allowed under the retrofit option, and provide some flexibility in terms of leasing tenant spaces within a multi-tenanted structure. Proposed uses and square footage allocated must remain within the limits designated in the zoning regulations and pursuant to the approved plan. Zoning compliance. The proposed amendments do not present any use or condition that would render the site non-conforming with respect to the zoning regulations. At the time of a subsequent department site plan approval or waiver therefrom, compliance with the zoning regulations will be required. Criteria for approval. The proposed amendments to the Summit Master Plan meet the criteria for approval noted in section 4H3C of the P&D regulations and will maintain a site that is compliant with the POCD and the purpose for which it was rezoned. Any future site plan approvals or waivers therefrom will ensure compliance with the EIC regulations and zoning regulations, adequacy of utilities, facilities, and the roadway network. Conclusion. Based on the above, it is reasonable for the commission to conclude that the proposed amendments to the Summit Master Plan are consistent with the purpose for which the site was rezoned and master plan approved, and provide flexibility while maintaining a mixed-use development. The amendments do not materially alter the master plan that was approved last year.
Thank you. Ms. Calitro, on page 2, the box that you have there, the phase total non-residential square footage, the 216,650, that's the school within the building?
No, that is the phase 2 is outside of the building.
That's the outside of the building.
Correct. So they would get to the 950, 390, which is their maximum non-residential, and that would consist of phase 1, which is the existing building, 733, 740, plus the phase 2, the 216,650. That's how you get to the 950.
That's what I thought, and then my brain shifted gears as you were reading, so I figured I'd double check it.
That's okay.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Attorney Beecher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record again, Tom Beecher representing SC Ridge Owner LLC. To that point, phase 2 is the warehouse, the Clancy warehouse project down on Sawmill, which is a separate building to be constructed and a separate phase of this project under the original master plan. And to Mr. Malillo's point a few minutes ago, this particular application to amend our master plan is to amend our master plan under the current regulations that you have not yet amended. So we are just seeking to actually keep things moving on our part. And so we're seeking these particular 2 changes to our current master plan tonight. Obviously, we'd like you to take these 2 applications, close the hearings, and add them to your agenda tonight and act on them. But nevertheless, these are this particular application is just to amend the current master plan. So as I said, pertaining to the other application, since you approved our original master plan, a lot of lease up has occurred in the building, and the building has undergone further repurposing. And this activity has led us to the conclusion that we needed to come back to you to request some minor changes that allow some flexibility in the leasing and development of this building and this site under our current master plan. So these two changes are, number one, to permit us to lease out an additional 7,877 square feet of non-residential space. That's all. And I'll explain that in a minute. And number two, to give us some flexible ranges in leasing out space for the three different categories of non-residential uses pursuant to the PND, so that we do not need to come back to you and amend the master plan every time we have a slight shift in the numbers of our types of uses in the building due to tenant changes. So the first request is for a mere 7,877 square feet. For this project, the current 75% maximum allows us to use up to 950,390 square feet for non-residential uses on the entire site. However, the master plan that we submitted to you and that you approved showed a total of 942,513 square feet of non-residential uses on the property. And so that sort of became a cap because it was in the master plan approved by you. Even though by regulation, we could use the 7,877 that's left over between what we showed in the master plan and what's allowed as a 75% cap. So we are here just to ask you to amend our master plan to allow us to use that extra 7,877 square feet to go towards office space in the phase 2 Clancy project. It's that simple. Our second request to amend the master plan is to allow some flexibility in leasing space by giving us some reasonable ranges of use within the three categories of non-residential uses spelled out in the PND regulations. The three categories of non-residential uses in the PND regulations are neighborhood, retail, and service uses. That's the predominant one. That's retail and office space. The next one is non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the neighborhood. So the Clancy warehouse or the research lab on the ground floor of the main building are two examples of that. And the third type is community facilities. Those are the three types of non-residential use categories. To allow flexibility in leasing within the existing building without the need to file an application with the zoning commission for amendment to the master plan each and every time there's a tenant change dilemma, we've asked for the following amendment to the master plan. Quote, without exceeding the maximum non-residential building floor area permitted on the entire site, that's the 950,360, to amend the master plan to allow the following flexibility within the existing building. To allow between 470,000 and 500,000 square feet to be used for neighborhood retail and service uses. To allow between 85,000 and 115,000 square feet to be used for non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the neighborhood. And to allow between 2,200 and 20,000 square feet to be used for community facilities, end quote. To further explain the need for this flexibility, our current approved master plan showed you, and therefore, as it turned out, as I said, it turned into a cap, allowed a maximum of 490,806 square feet of neighborhood retail and service uses, 95,929 square feet of non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the neighborhood, and 15,996 square feet of community facilities. When we filed our master plan, we of course did not have a crystal ball, and things are changing constantly in terms of tenancies. Michael Basile has done a terrific job leasing up the building in an organized fashion. But when you're trying to lease up a 1.2 million square foot building, being locked into rigid caps presents a problem. In my letter to you, I showed you the current projected non-residential uses within the existing 1.2 million square foot building. And in that projection, I illustrate that the projected non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the neighborhood is at 97,462 square feet, which exceeds our currently approved master plan cap of 95,929 square feet. Because we want to increase this category of use by just 1,533 square feet, we would have to file a request with you to amend our master plan. Why not allow us the flexibility going forward to just work with the staff if, such in this case, the square footage of non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the neighborhood falls within our requested range of 85,000 to 115,000 square feet, which it would. It's a lot simpler and does not impact the mixed-use P&D concept whatsoever. Another example of the problem is because tenants change frequently as part of our site plan application, which was approved by Sharon and Jen, we actually had to show 4,170 square feet as, quote, undesignated vacant non-residential space because we had lost a community facility tenant and we were therefore at or just below the approved maximum figures established in our master plan for both the neighborhood retail and service uses and the non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the neighborhood. We were right there because of what we put in the master plan. So we had to just show dead space for the moment. The space is counted in our total non-residential space, but we cannot actually use it for either neighborhood retail or uses not serving the immediate needs of the neighborhood. So 1,533 square foot problem and a 4,170 square foot problem illustrate the need for flexibility that we're asking for so that additional office space or other use space can be leased without running into a rigid cap, or the space can be leased with some degree of interchangeability between the three different types of non-residential uses. And again, clearly these small shifts in space or use types will not impact the overall integrity of the mixed-use P&D development concept or the master plan. As I said, absent some flexibility, we would need to apply to this commission to amend the master plan for each of those little problems, which doesn't seem like a good use of your valuable time or ours. Amending the master plan now to allow this flexibility between use categories makes sense. We've suggested reasonable ranges so that the integrity of the mix of uses contemplated at the time of the approval of our original master plan is maintained. If the need arises for us to go outside these ranges, then yes, of course, we would come back to you for a proposed change to the master plan. But having the flexibility avoids the need for multiple applications. And again, to be clear, allowing these ranges does not allow us to exceed the total maximum non-residential space allowed by the regulations or our approved master plan. Furthermore, the changes of tenant uses will be monitored by staff in our site plan or our site plan waiver applications. And this is the normal process the city follows for any changes of uses in commercial buildings in the city. So approving these amendments is not adding work for the staff at all. Frankly, it actually reduces staff work because the staff will not have to process multiple applications to amend the master plan if that's the way we have to go. And as you heard, the planning director agrees with these points that we've made. The Planning Commission also reviewed these proposed amendments and they have sent you a unanimous positive recommendation as well. They said these proposed amendments satisfy the criteria in the P&D regulations for master plan approval, as they really don't vary the master plan all that significantly that you've already approved. Instead of rigid caps, it just allows flexibility. As the director concluded, and I quote her report, It is reasonable for the commission to conclude that the proposed amendments to the Summit Master Plan are consistent with the purpose for which the site was rezoned and the master plan that was approved, and will provide flexibility while maintaining a mixed-use development. The amendments do not materially alter the master plan that was approved last year, unquote. We obviously agree with that statement. And lastly, as I noted in my cover letter to you, Section 4H1 of the PND regulation states, and I quote that from the regulations, quote, "It is intended that the planned neighborhood development regulations will permit flexibility in the design and development of large tracts of land or the retrofitting of obsolete commercial or industrial buildings," close quote. So for all these reasons, we believe these amendments are appropriate, and if granted, will allow the PND site to continue to flourish, which is a positive for both my clients and the city. And I would just end by saying, if you see fit to close this public hearing as well, we would hope that you might consider adding both these applications to your agenda tonight and perhaps act on them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Commission members, any questions of Attorney Beecher? Mr. Melillo, please.
It's Attorney Beecher. First, I want to comment. I need to go home, look. I'm already home. I need to look a little bit to find where that camera is that you hid on my desk, because you answered 2 questions almost shortly after I wrote them down on a piece of paper to ask you. So
Well, that's good. Then you're not sick of me yet.
But one of them I want to emphasize, I just want to emphasize, and this is the flexibility that you were just talking about. So I wanted to just, to bring it to clarity and make sure I'm understanding this right. So within the flexibility limits, outside of those flexibility limits, it would require a site plan modification. But within those flexibility limits, it would really just bring this similar to any other change of use in a commercial property or a non-residential property anywhere else in the city of Danbury. Is that correct?
That's correct. In other words, within this range, it would be either a site plan revision or a site plan waiver that staff would handle just like any other property.
So so we're not treating this particular PND or any PND any differently. It's just they're not getting any special accommodations. It's just bringing them in line with everything else.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Melillo. Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Ms. Reed, I just sent you a text. We lost Ms. Calitro, so look for her if she wants to come in. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I'm just waiting.
Okay, great.
Oh, here she is.
All right, let's wait a second for her to come on. Well, let me ask if there's any other commission members at this time to have any questions. Commission members, any other questions of Attorney Beecher at this time? Ms. Calitro, welcome back.
Oh my gosh, this is the second time this happened. I think I need a new laptop. Sorry.
No problem. Commission members, while I'm asking if you have any questions of Attorney Beecher, let me ask if you have any questions of Calitro also at this time, and then we're going to revisit again. I don't see any hands. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Attorney Beecher, did you have anyone else you wanted to appoint or to say a few words?
I don't believe they wish to say anything, Mr. Chairman, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Ms. Calitro, did you have any comments?
No, I'm good, Chairman.
Thank you. Also, if I could compliment Ms. Calitro and Attorney Beecher, I think what you're trying to accomplish with this petition was very well described in your presentation, Attorney Beecher, and in the staff report. It was a little complicated, but then it wasn't by the way you laid it out. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Calitro.
Any other comments by any commission members? I think if someone wants to make a motion to close this, Mr. Melillo.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Commission members, Commissioner Melillo has made a motion to close this public hearing. I'd be looking for a second. Mr. Mazzy seconds that. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? For the record, I did not hear or see any opposition, so unanimously this public hearing is closed. Mr. Melillo.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to move item number 1 and item number 2 under public hearings to item number 1 and under number 2 under old business for discussion and possible action, please. And to match the orders that they're on the existing agenda.
Got it. Thank you. Commission members, there's a motion made by Mr. Melillo to move the public hearings this evening 1 and 2 to number 1 and 2 in that order as heard and closed under old business for discussion and possible action this evening. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fay. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That also carries unanimously, as I did not see or hear any no's, any negatives. Well, thank you. Let us move now to, let me put this over here. We have a third public hearing this evening, Commission members. It is a petition of Quirk Works Brewing and Blendery, Inc., Triangle Industries LLC, property owner 78 Triangle Street, J14280 for special permit for brewery in the IL40 zone. I couldn't print out any of those documents on that today. Ms. Calitro, what do we have here that has to get read in?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think, well, if you want me to read, I can read in the application for a waiver to site plan requirements that was issued by Jennifer Eminger, my deputy, on April 20th, 2021, if you want me to read that.
Please, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Okay, this is from Jennifer Eminger, Deputy Planning Director, to Tom Beecher regarding application for a waiver to site plan requirements, code W 2021-03, change of use, unit 1-1 wholesale/warehouse, Napa Wholesale Auto Parts to office, Community Action Agency of Western Connecticut, and units 1-3 and 1-5, upholstery, Bethel Upholstery to brewery warehouse, Quirk Works Brewing and Blendery, Inc., 78 Triangle Street, tax assessor lot J14280. Dear Mr. Beecher, I have reviewed the reference application for approval of 2 changes in use in an existing building located at 78 Triangle Street, tax assessor lot J14280. The property owner is Triangle Industries LLC. The building is approximately 27,000 square feet in size and is located in the IL40 zoning district. The proposed uses consist of a 10,800 square foot office, Community Action Agency of Western Connecticut, to be located in unit 1-1, and a 3,620 square foot brewery located in combined units 1-3 and 1-5. The brewery includes a 1,100 square foot, 34 seat tasting room. In accordance with section 6A2A5 and 6A2C1 of the zoning regulations, an office is a permitted use and a brewery is a special permit in the IL40 zoning district, respectively. Pursuant to sections 8C4 of the zoning regulations, the uses in the building require a total of 70 parking spaces, of which the proposed office requires 22.7 spaces and brewery requires 12.5 spaces, or 34 seats and 2 employees. And the remaining 2 office tenants require 34.9 spaces. The A2 survey submitted with the application, titled Zoning Location Map, prepared for Triangle Industries LLC, Danbury, Connecticut, prepared by New England Land Surveying PC, dated June 23rd, 2005, shows 114 parking spaces, including 3 handicap parking spaces. Therefore, adequate parking is available available for the proposed uses and the remaining uses. Your application for a waiver to site plan requirements for said 10,800 square feet office and 3,620 square foot brewery located at 78 Triangle Street, tax assessor J 14280 is approved, subject to the following administrative requirements. Number one, approval is granted strictly for the proposed change in use. Any additional changes to the site layout will require a revised site plan application. Number two, the tasting room located within the brewery shall not exceed 1,100 square feet in area and 34 seats. Number three, pursuant to section 3F2 of the zoning regulations, the applicant shall obtain a special permit from the zoning commission for the brewery. Number four, the applicant shall provide evidence to the zoning enforcement officer that the zoning commission has granted the special permit in accordance with number three above. This approval does not waive any other departmental approvals, requirements, or permits that may be necessary to complete this project, including that required for site signage. The permit sender should be contacted regarding the process for obtaining a zoning permit. Please contact the Department of Planning and Zoning if you have any questions. Respectfully, Jennifer L. Eminger, AICP Deputy Planning Director.
Thank you.
And that is to the correspondence, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Attorney Beecher, did you, Mr. Rizzo, plan it to happen this way tonight? All 3 out of 3? Is it a statistical oddity?
It just happened that way. We had a little help from Sharon and Joanne, perhaps, but it wasn't our pushing.
We're just trying to get rid of them all on one night.
That's true. Yeah, I'm sick of myself already.
Go ahead, Attorney Beecher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for the record, my name is Tom Beecher, and I represent Quirkworks Brewing and Blendery, Inc., which is a mouthful if you try to say it 10 times fast. And I also represent Triangle Industries, LLC, the owner of 78 Triangle Street, the proposed location for this brewery. And with me tonight are Rick Cipriani, who is the president of Quirkworks, and Tony Rizzo Jr. on behalf of Triangle Industries. Quirkworks proposes to open a brewery in 3,620 square feet of tenant space in this particular building. Rick Cipriani has extensive experience in the craft brewing industry, brewery operations, and beverage distribution. And Rick's going to introduce himself to you in a few minutes. Danbury only has one brewery at the moment. That's Charter Oak. Bethel has one. I think it's called Broken Symmetry. And Richfield has the Nod Hill Brewery, and New Milford has a couple of breweries. So there's always room for competition. This property is located in the IL40 zone. There are times when we discuss the IL40 and the IG80 zones, and we lament the lack of manufacturing uses currently in these zones. Well, here we have a manufacturing use being proposed. The primary use of this brewery is the brewing of beer and the distribution of beer for wholesale sales. The secondary use is, of course, a tasting room. Let's talk about the neighborhood where this brewery would be located. The building is on the corner of Triangle Street and Lemack Avenue. If you know where the Lestaco Auto Parts was, right on the corner, that's the front of this particular building. There are no churches in the area. There are no schools in the area. The building is next door to the Rizzo Company's offices and their contractor's yard. And the Department of Motor Vehicles is across the street on Lemack. So there will really be no impact of any sort on this particular neighborhood from this use. This particular property is served by city water and sewer. And we provided you with a building plan. The Community Action Agency of Western Connecticut will occupy that old Lestaco Napa Wholesale Auto Parts location in the front of the building. They're going to have 7,300 square feet of offices and 3,500 square feet of their own warehouse space. The Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services occupies the opposite end of the building, and they have 11,000 square feet of offices there. There's also a one attorney office that That particular attorney has a 1,300 square foot office in the building. And as you can see from the floor plan that we submitted, the brewery space will be divided as follows. The brewery and warehouse itself, that area will be 2,520 square feet. And then the tasting room will just be 1,100 square feet. And what we submitted to you shows the entire space as we're required to do. And it shows that there will be 34 seats in the tasting room. The doors into the tasting room come from the parking lot and driveway on the west side of the building, so that the doors into the tasting room are not coming directly in off of Lemac, the Lemac side of the building. There's plenty of parking. And just to reiterate, the site plan waiver that was just read into the record was Jennifer's review of this building, including the brewery, and approval of the parking requirements as well as the traffic counts. But anyway, there are plenty of parking spaces. There's a total of 114 parking spaces on this site. Pursuant to our approved site plan waiver, all of these uses, including the brewery, only need 70 out of those 114 parking spaces. According to the parking formulas, the brewery only needs 13 out of those 70. The state of Connecticut, because it's an office use, needs the most. They need 31 spaces. But really, the brewery tasting room use will not overlap with office hours of either the state of Connecticut or the Community Action Agency very much. So there is plenty of parking on this site. Pursuant to the traffic trip generator regulations, Quirk Works will generate only 74 traffic trips per day, with 62 of those attributable to the tasting room. Now, logically, the traffic trips associated with the tasting room would mostly be in non-peak traffic hours, which, as you all know, the peak traffic times are the weekday rush hours in the morning and the afternoon, and then on Saturday mornings. So only one of those three peak times would possibly have overlap with the brewery. The trip generation results show that the entire site has just 328 trips per day. Again, as I said, only 74 are attributable to the brewery. With respect to deliveries and distribution from this site, most supplies are going to arrive by box truck or FedEx or UPS. Occasionally, there may be a trailer truck, but that's it. And in terms of outgoing distribution, a van would make deliveries with outgoing trips 2 or 3 times per week when things are up and running fairly smoothly. So under your general criteria for special permits for a brewery, as I said, this use is compatible with the surrounding uses in this neighborhood. The brewery is not going to have any detrimental effects on this neighborhood because of the uses that surround this particular building. I think you can easily find that this proposed brewery complies with your regulations. And I think it would be an exciting addition to the city of Danbury. Rick, would you like to take a few minutes to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your proposed business?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. I apologize. This is, I think, my second Zoom call ever. So haven't done much of Zooming. But my goal tonight, I guess, is to have you guys learn a little bit about myself, learn about my professional career, and then ultimately about the business plan of Quirk Works Brewery and Blendery that we're proposing at 78 Triangle Street. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. So I'm 45 years old, married to a lovely woman. She is my wife, and she is also the head nurse in the New Fairfield School District. My son is 15 and my daughter is 13. I have spent the past 24 years of my career in the beverage industry, either it being brewing, sales, distribution, or marketing. And most recently, if any of you have heard, I was one of the owners of the Bull and Barrel Brew Pub in Brewster, New York. For those of you that don't know, the Bull and Barrel was open 7 years ago. We unfortunately closed due to COVID in early December. But the Bull and Barrel consisted of a 200-seat restaurant, 140-seat banquet facility, a 70-seat seasonal beer garden, a fully functional microbrewery and a mechanical dab set in the center of the restaurant. It just was not feasible to expect 200 to 400 people on any given Friday or Saturday night. So I had to kind of rethink and come up with a new business model. And that's where QuirkWorks Brewing and Blendery was born, basically. So what is QuirkWorks and kind of where'd that come about? Well, we plan on brewing very unique beers that are not in the market, using unique ingredients, using unique brewing processes that are not traditional. Blendery kind of lends itself to mixed fermentation of different yeasts, hybrid styles. And, the ultimate goal is to keep the beer simple, yet sophisticated. But all these beers are somewhat going to be quirky. And that's kind of where QuirkWorks Brewing and Blendery's name came from. Now you might ask, why did I choose Danbury? Why is Danbury my ideal location? First and foremost, the Connecticut liquor laws lend themselves for small breweries to succeed as opposed to New York. Why is that? Because in Connecticut, you can do self-distribution as a brewer, and the retail outlets and the channels allow for self-distribution, and there are a lot more retail outlets. I took a look on the Brewers Association website, which is the organization that kind of runs data across the country, and Connecticut is ranked 25th for the number of craft breweries as a state. And in 2020, those breweries generated $849 million economic dollars right here in Connecticut, according to the Brewers Association. QuirkWorks Brewing and Blendery, like I said, will rely on self-distribution. And in preparation of that, I've spent the past 3.5 months as a craft beer distributor selling to all Fairfield County accounts and pitching my idea. And they've all seemed to be on board with this kind of cutting edge concept that brewers around here are not doing. So I personally see the biggest potential right here in Danbury. I'm going to sum it up in 3 reasons for you. First and foremost is the quality of restaurants that are in the city of Danbury. That will allow for some great on-premise and keg sales. Number 2 is the size and education that I see in the retail outlets compared to the other Fairfield County. A great opportunity and relationships I have with the beer and soda liquor stores. And third is really the absence of these weird pushing the envelope type craft beers that I plan on brewing and developing. I failed to mention that as a brewer in the past, I've won multiple awards, or the beers have, for their quality and craft. And I have a professional brewing degree. It's just boring microbiology and science, but it's my passion in art. So part of our business model is that tasting room that we talked about. And that's where people can come see and experience and touch and taste firsthand of what we're doing there. I have to thank the landlord, Tony Rizzo, because we're talking about putting in these gorgeous 10-foot all glass see-through industrial doors that will make this like this cool ambience that's really not seen in Danbury. It's kind of like bringing the outside to inside. I think that's going to be a great attraction as well. And kind of with my prior ventures with Bull and Barrel, I'm proud to say that in my 6 or 7 years, I've raised over $250,000 for nonprofit organizations such as the Putnam Humane Society, Hogs for Hope, United for the Troops. We've even done Dylan's Dinner out of Sandy Hook. We've done a fundraiser for. So me as an active member of this community and now this business community is to continue to be involved with that and have that value added aspect to what I'm doing. One of the last things we want to do is feature local artists from either their talents of graphic design on our beer cans and kind of portray their talents as well. So it's my expectations that as this company gets up and running and growing in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I would potentially employ 10 to 15 permanent employees in this location. So in the end, I really hope that you guys are excited about this project as much as I am. And if at all possible, if the board considers voting on this matter this evening, it would just make me get that much quicker into that opening stage. So I appreciate your time. And if there are any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Well, thank you very much. Good presentation as well. Commission members, any questions of Mr. Cipriani at this time?
I got a question.
Mr. Mazzi?
Yeah, so are you actually going to be selling beer out of this facility? I should rephrase that. So like if I like your beer, I could buy a 12-pack or something and
Yeah, part of the Connecticut manufacturing license does allow that to occur. And I look at it as more of a market of creativity where you have can releases. So, if I can something today, I might release it in 24 hours and people that are that eager to try it can get there during our normal hours. Now, my normal hours will be very similar to what Charter Oak's normal hours are and all the other breweries that Tom had mentioned from, the two in Newtown, Bethel, those hours, which kind of offset the hours of the day business that's there.
gotcha. Okay.
Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Amita, please.
Yes, I have a question, I guess for Attorney Beecher. I'm just curious on the location of this. I'm looking at the survey map and it doesn't show like any entrance to this unit on the west side, as you indicated. It shows just parking spaces. Wouldn't one of those parking spaces be eliminated for the entrance?
In all likelihood, that would be true. And the entrances are showed. It's if you look at the floor plan for the brewery, you will see the doors on that side of the building.
Right. Yeah, I see that, but on the survey, all I see is parking spaces. That's not going to impact. I mean, you have plenty of parking spaces, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so the loss of one won't impact this
Yeah, we have,
at all.
I think, 40 more than we need.
Okay.
All set, Mr. Amita? Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Mr. Melillo, please.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I don't frequent tasting rooms. I really can't drink alcoholic beverages. So you mentioned, you alluded to the hours being similar, but what are the hours?
Typical hours would be Thursday from 4 to 9 p.m., Friday from 4 to 9 or 10 p.m., Saturday from 12 noon to 9 or 10 p.m., and Sunday from 12 or 1 p.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. Closed Monday, Tuesdays, and I'm up in the air on Wednesday right now. I don't know what I'm going to do on Wednesday.
Okay, and then I know that the teachers had a little event one time, or a small group of teachers for I think it was at Charter Oak, and there was some talk about some food that they had had to get a food truck. Are you going to have any food arrangements in conjunction with your tasting room?
That's the only way that we can have food at a brewery in the IL-40. It would have to be via a food truck.
Okay, I thought that was the case. I wasn't, like I said, I'm not as familiar with it, so I wanted to double check.
Although as an accessory use, it's something to be explored down the road.
Which actually I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to open up any can of worms. Okay. My only other, and I don't think this is going to be an issue at all. I was just thinking, so if I'm reading this correctly, it's going where I see the sign, I see Lemack Avenue, so it actually heads up. It's not the whole building; it's a portion of the building. So it's going to be coming in from from the side parking lot there, not on either Lemack or Triangle Street.
That's correct. You can go in at either end of the building, but this particular unit's actually in the middle of the building with the Connecticut agency on one end and the state of Connecticut's offices on the other.
Okay, I mean, I don't think it'll be too big of an issue because there's only 34 seats. But my only thought was the fact that the Danbury Bus Company is right across the street, and I was just trying to think how at 4 or 5 o'clock, as the buses are returning to the bus station in conjunction with this. But thinking it's probably not going to be a big issue, especially because if anything, it would be when people are probably arriving and not leaving, so people can drive hopefully in the right frame of mind at that point in time.
Well, I also don't think all 34 seats are going to get up and leave at the tail end of the buses going into across the street on Triangle.
Right.
All set, Mr. Malillo?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Malillo. Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Any other questions, commission members at this time? Joe.
Hi, can I just ask a question just to be sure? I think I know the answer to this, but so you would be obtaining a manufacturer permit for beer, which is an LMB permit from the state? Is that the right permit?
So yes, beer manufacturer.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colatro. Thank you, Ms. Cipriani. Commission members, any other questions? Mr. Hawley, please.
Yeah. Are there any plans for outdoor seating?
There potentially can be, and I think right now, how Connecticut and Governor Lamont is mandating or allowing outside seating with just a relatively simple permit process as I go onto the Department of Health's website. So I think if, we may not be able to open and have fully outside functioning this season because it might just be too cold. But if we were to get open in the fall, let's say, would be, September 1st would be the earliest, I might consider using that permit process as a temporary measure, but ultimately then have to get the outside seating. There was a few questions about, the entrance. So I like to describe it as it's kind of like down the alleyway, and it's going to be lit up and properly lit up and directional wise. So, if there was any outside seating, it would be contained right outside those garage door entrances, which would be in sight of no one. It wouldn't be, nobody would see them, really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley. Thank you, Ms. Cipriani. Commission members, anything else at this time? I'd like to, if I can, Mr. Cipriani, and commission members, please indulge me on this. I'm not that knowledgeable on this. And what's throwing me off is the word tasting room. So is this is a facility, it's a public facility, someone parks their car, they walk in, they see what you have available on tap, 3 or 4, maybe 6 different products, and they sit down just like they would in a restaurant or a bar in Danbury, and they would order a beer. When I hear tasting, you're not giving out little samples of cups. There's no rule or regulation or restriction on that. People can come in, sit down and drink beer for a couple hours.
We would operate in the exact same form that Charter Oak operates. And I've been there. I've talked to Scott. It's the exact format there as in any other brewery that's there. So there'd be no difference.
So the answer is yes, because I've never been there either.
Yeah. The short answer is yes, Mr. Chairman. And the other thing is that in terms of the outdoor seating, we would work with the department on that if we're going to move forward on that down the road.
Thank you. And I think, well, just out of curiosity, how many brews would you have going at one time?
I plan on bringing out 1 to 2 beers every 2 weeks. So there's a constant stimulation of, whoa, what is this new one? Versus kind of the old thinking of just a flagship beer. Here's our 3 beers. We sell them 12 months out of the year. Okay, it's going to be fall. So we're going to do a white pumpkin cinnamon rouge, something very different.
So someone can walk in and there could be 8 different types to try at one time.
Correct. And then portion control and size. How, for me, it's more about what glassware for the style of beer, 10 ounce versus 12 ounce, small squatted, stemless, garnishes on the glasses that complement the styles. It's going to kind of be what this is about.
And my last question is, do you have a direct door from your facility to Tony Rizzo Jr.'s office?
There may be one in the next site plan waiver.
It's the exchange of Supersata for the beer, yes.
Yes.
And just one last point, Mr. Chairman, the phrase tasting room comes right out of the regulations.
Yeah, I know, but I just wanted to, I was really curious though, because you can have a tasting room for tea, tasting room for beer, tasting room for wine, and so I want to see what Mr. Cipriani was planning. Thank you very much. Any commission members, anything else at this time? So we're still on any other presenters, Mr. Beecher?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, who is that, please?
Perkins.
Oh, sure, Councilman. All
How
right.
you doing, Chairman? Thank you. Dwayne Perkins, 22 Main Street, Danbury, Connecticut. Member of the Danbury City Council as well. This isn't in my ward, but it's very close to it. I appreciate a lot of the things that the petitioner mentioned. I can relate to those things very well. I know Scott firsthand, personally, him and his wife, Michelle. I think it's Broken Cemetery. I've been to Nob Hill. I like all those places. Voracious out in Monroe. And I understand the concept. I understand that an addition like this is important to Danbury because it just brings out, young professionals and families to events. You don't have to worry about people standing on the tables doing, Jello shots. This isn't that kind of thing. You have craft brew, you have high scale, you have a lot of different types of opportunity for economic development. My biggest concern, I guess, is that, I'm just a little concerned about the proliferation of these types of special exceptions into other IL-40 zones. I mean, I'm hoping to see a type of language that would restrict how these things can actually be formed into other areas. Otherwise, they may end up in areas that they're not suitable for. Is my point. So I just like to see the commissioners, analyze what it takes to approve something with certain language that restricts certain types of these popping up just anywhere. Okay, but other than that, I think the whole thing is good. I mean, we like micro brew pubs here in Connecticut, and I think the governor's doing a good job with the regulation and the language to make these things prosper and thrive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate it. Attorney Beecher, did you want to address any of his comments?
Well, yeah, I would. I'm just not sure. I'll just go, if there's any other opposition, I'll just go last.
Sure. Well, he spoke in favor. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Oh.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? I do not see or hear any opposition. Attorney Beecher.
Well, yeah, and so thank you, Mr. Perkins, for your support. I think what the commission has to understand or remember in terms of this particular application is that this commission changed its regulations to specifically allow a brewery in the IL-40 zone. So this commission determined that in general, it's a good use in this particular zone. To Mr. Perkins' point, this is exactly why we're having a hearing tonight, to determine the particular suitability of a particular site for a brewery. And there aren't any reasons that there's any detriment from this particular site to have a brewery. So I think the process takes care of Mr. Perkins' concerns as it unwinds for any particular application. And then, of course, the free market will also dictate how many breweries the city of 86,000 people can sustain. So those are my closing comments. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Commission members, I will welcome you to ask Attorney Beecher, Mr. Cipriani, or Councilman Perkins, any questions that you may have, or Ms. Calitro at this time. Are there any questions, comments. Ms. Calicio, did you have anything that you wanted to close with, follow up with?
No, I'm all set, Chairman.
Thank you. Attorney Beecher, you're all set?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commission members, nobody else has anything else to say about this tonight. What's your pleasure? I'd like to look at a motion to see if we can close this public hearing this evening. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to close it.
Commission members, Mr. Mazzy is making a motion to close this public hearing. Is there a second? Second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? I did not hear or see any opposition to that, so unanimously, this public hearing is closed. Thank you. Commission members, I don't know if anyone is interested in possibly moving this under old business, or maybe we still have time to address that. Why don't we go now to?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to move this item number 3 under old business.
Thank you, Mr. Malolo. Quirkworks. Commission members, there's a motion made by Mr. Malillo to move petition of Quirkworks Brewing and Blendery to number 3 under old business for discussion and possible action. Is there a second? I see a second by Ms. Hylinski. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? I did not see any or hear any opposition. So this is moved to number 3 under old business. Thank you. We do not have any public hearing, continuation of any public hearings this evening. Moving right along, let us go to old business under discussion of possible action. The first one this evening is a petition from SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend sections 4H2B2A and 4H2B3B of the zoning regulations, amend the PND zone. That public hearing was open on May 11, 2021, and it was closed on May 11, 2021, which is this evening. Commission members. Mr. Malillo.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve this petition for the purposes that it is consistent with the plan of conservation and development. It meets the purpose and intent of the PND zone. It will not negatively impact the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. And it also provides, I wrote it down, hold on one second. It provides a public benefit and public need for the city that meets in the city of Danbury.
Thank you, Mr. Malillo. Commission members, you heard a motion by Mr. Malillo to approve this petition with reasons. Is there a second? I see a Ms. Hylinski. Commission members, any discussion? Any discussion, commission members? A yes is yes, a no is no, and we're going to do this by roll call. Mr. Almeida.
Yes.
Ms. Fay.
Yes.
Mr. Malillo.
Yes.
Ms. Hylinski. Ms. Hylinski? Oh, I'm sorry. I was writing, I didn't see your head. Ms. Hylinski is yes.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzy.
Yes.
Mr. Eriquez.
Yes.
Mr. Marchand.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 0. Approved. Thank you. Number 2, under old business for discussion and possible action is a petition of SC Ridge Owner LLC to amend the master plan for the summit that was approved on June 30th, 2020. Commission members, what's your pleasure? Mr. Malillo, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve this petition in that it is in that it does not change the consistency with the compliance rather the plan of conservation and development that the original master plan had. The proposed amendments are consistent with the purpose for which the site was rezoned, and it will provide flexibility while maintaining the mixed use development.
Thank you, Mr. Malillo. Commission members, there is a motion made by Mr. Malillo with reasons. Is there a second? A second by Mr. Massey. Commission members, any discussion? Any comments? Not hearing any. We'll go to a roll call vote. Mr. Malillo,
Yes.
Ms. Hylinski,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzi,
Yes.
Mr. Almeida,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Eriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Marchand.
Yes.
I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Got everybody? 9-0. That also passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Beecher. Mr. Rizzo.
Beecher, thank you, Commission members. The third one this evening is a petition of Quirk Works Brewing and Blendery, Inc., Triangle Streets LLC, property owner, 78 Triangle Street, J14280, for special permit for brewery in the IL40 zone. The public hearing was open on May 11, 2021, closed on May 11, 2021, which is this evening. Commission members, Mr. Malillo, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve this petition in that the proximity will not have a detrimental effect upon any adjacent school, church, or other place of worship. The location will not have a detrimental effect upon the immediate area, with due consideration given to the requirements as set forth in 3F2A, number 2, A and B.
Thank you. Commission members, there is a motion made by Ms. Malillo with reasons, second by Mr. Hawley. Any discussion? Any comments? Ms. Hylinski.
I just wanted to ask where the name came from.
Let's vote first, and then we'll have Mr. Sipper here, because I read it 3 times and had trouble 3 times. Anyway, Mr. Malillo.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzi.
Yes.
Hawley.
Yes.
Ms. Hylinski.
Yes.
Ms. Fay.
Yes.
Mr. Amida.
Yes.
Mr. Eriquez.
Yes.
Mr. Marchand.
Yes.
I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-0. That also is approved unanimously. Mr. Cipriani, where'd you come up with the name?
So it took about a month. I wrote names down on a piece of paper, and every time I'd come back and look at them, I says no, yes, no, and I kind of process of elimination. And it wasn't going to be like, Jagged Circle Brewery, Red Brick Brewery. It had to be something that resembled the bigger picture of the beers we're doing, and that's these quirky beers. And I guess I failed to mention there's a few, prototypes of the cans that I've got coming out with the name and the logo, Quirk Works, which is more of like a lab science blending fermentation graphics. So I'm excited, guys. Thanks a lot.
And if you can't say it, then you have to leave.
Over the years, we've had some people come in. Stu Leonard's was one of them. And a couple of people would come in and they'd bring samples. But we can't do it because you're not open yet. We can't do it because we're on Zoom. Anyway, good luck. Good luck to all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
For your time and very well done presentations. And the commissioners appreciate that, and staff reports as well. We don't have any new business. We don't have any correspondence. Are there any other matters? Any other matters? Any other matters? For reference only, and I'll read these quick. I know everyone wants to sign off on this. It's getting a little late. Petition of Berkeley Insurance Company and Health CT Real Estate LLC to amend the master plan of the Reserve for Tax Assessors Lot B15005, amend Phase 9B, non-residential uses not serving the immediate needs of the residential development from 100,000 square feet of commercial use to 100,000 square feet as a physical medical facility inpatient use. The March submission. That public hearing is scheduled for May 25th, 2021. Keep in mind this date is subject to change depending on circumstances related to COVID-19. Number 2, petition of Newtown Road LLC, Maria Manuel Andre, Whitney Avenue, K12254 for change of zone from RA8 to CG20. That was also the March submission. Public hearing scheduled for May 25th, 2021. This date is subject to change depending on circumstances related to COVID-19. And number 3, petition of D&B Wellness to amend sections 5A, 5F2, 5B, 3B, and 5B, 5F1 of the zoning regulations. And in parentheses, it's to delete prohibition of drive-through window for medical marijuana dispensary. Public hearing is scheduled for June 8th, 2021. This date is subject to change depending on circumstances related to COVID. And if I can, Ms. Calitro, we're up against a possible May 20th decision again as to where we're going to be hearing these May 25th petitions, right? We may hear them in the chambers, or we may go on extension again by Zoom. So, Commissioner members, I guess we don't have any indication yet where it's going to go. And
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I don't have anything to definitively report, but I am hearing some rumblings of some extensions. So I'm just not quite sure till July. So I'm not sure where the hearings fall into that, but I wouldn't be surprised that they wouldn't be part of that at this point. But you're right. It's like a day. We're monitoring everything daily. So the last change occurred 3 hours before before the deadline. So when we know, we'll let you guys know.
there's no guarantee on rumblings, but I like hearing rumblings.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commission members, anything else? I don't think so. I don't see any. So I would entertain a motion to, did we do everything? We're done, right? How about a motion to adjourn? Anyone? Mr. Amita?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, second by Ms. Fay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous too. We're closed at 9:05. Adjourned.